So listen, the reason, some people ask me, why, I've got this event called Want to Be an Entrepreneur, why are you calling Phil Brand the football manager, professional sportsman? I said, entrepreneurship, like I said earlier to these guys, I think entrepreneurship has nothing to do with business. The word entrepreneur actually is coming from a French word that means to undertake. It's an undertaking. And the original word entrepreneur comes from a Sanskrit word, athena pruna, that means inner motivation. Right. So to be entrepreneurial is to do something that you love, but do it with velocity and do it with high. And I don't see any difference between entrepreneurship and professional sport in terms of how you approach it. So I just want to get your insight on what does it take to be at the top of your game?
Well, I've recently been to an LMA initiative on Tuesday at the British Museum.
That's the League Managers Association.
Yeah, the League Managers Association in London. And Brendan Rodgers presented to the audience during that seminar. It was the last presentation of 7. And his presentation was obviously from a football perspective. It was something I wanted to listen to. And he talked about that. The first word he mentioned where entrepreneur, management, leadership is concerned is the word commit. Whatever you are, whatever you do in life, you have to commit to it. If you don't commit to it, you might as well forget about it. And I don't mean anybody in life, I'm talking about everybody in life, whether you're a road sweeper, whether you're a football manager. Commit to what you are. Commit to what you are as a person, commit to the career that you undertake, and even commit to failure. Because sometimes in football matches, you do lose them. But most of the time, you win them, hopefully. And then you still stand up here and talk to you about football management. I think that's a key word. The second word he used was organisation. So the word is what's the word when you're spelling a word out?
Phonetic.
Come on, it's
phonetic.
what?
Phonetic.
It's phonetic. Thank you. Do you want to come on stage? There was C.O.R.E, it was core, and the second word was organisation. He was talking about committing to a plan.
An anagram.
Yes.
An anagram, right. Commitment, organisation, go on.
Thank you.
Right.
Organisation, planning, whatever you do, make sure you have a plan. Make sure you have a schedule to that plan. Make sure you have targets as you go along, so that as you're going along, you're committing to a target. Now, if you don't achieve that target, shift your targets, move your barriers, get them out of the way. So make sure that you are committed to the plan, to the organisation of it. The third one was responsibility. Whatever you are, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have a great idea, you have to take responsibility for that idea, because people will laugh at you, guaranteed. Throughout life, they'll laugh at you. They'll think you're crazy, it's a daft idea, it's this, that and the other. When I sat the players around the pitch at half-time at Manchester City, I was absolutely pilloried for that moment. Pilloried for that moment. But my word, it didn't half make me famous. So every time I walk into a pub, or I go into a bar, or go into a horse racing meeting, which is one of my passions, I'll get 20 blokes sitting down in front of me. And every one of them wants to do the half-time team talk. And all I was doing, well, I can't tell you what I was calling.
Just like what Phil did when he was manager of Hull, usually at half time you take the players in the dressing room and you motivate them or read. What Phil did is on the pitch. You left them on the pitch, you sat them down and he did the talk. So
there was 52,000 people at the game, and there was about 6,500 travelling Hull City fans.
When did you decide to do that? At half time the whistle went? Or?
When the fourth goal went in. It was one of them. I'll tell you the full story. It was a Boxing Day fixture at Manchester City, and everyone knows Manchester City have invested absolute millions into being successful. At the time, they weren't that successful. Having said that, they had a one player called Robinho who was worth 33 million. Now that in itself was 16 million above my total budget for player spend, management spend, transfer fees, you name it. So they had one player out there that was twice as much as what our players were worth, or what the team was worth. But the commitment side of our performance in the first half just wasn't acceptable. And when I looked to my right-hand side, in a great stadium, fantastic arena, I looked at my right-hand side and there was 6,500 people, supporters, who had committed to an away performance, and we weren't committing to that performance. I decided to embarrass the players and decided to, it was totally open the changing room up to the outside world. And when I sat them down, I knew there was two of them players who had actually gone out the night before, Christmas Day night. And that was probably one of the main reasons why we were struggling. They had decided to go out and celebrate a little bit too much. When I got that information, that's the moment I decided when the fourth goal went in, I was going to humiliate them and humiliate myself. Since that day, I don't know. Was that commitment to a cause? I've no idea. It was commitment to myself, that was for sure.
Have you contemplated ever doing that at Roots Hall?
Coco suggested to me a couple of times. We were 2-0 down last Saturday at half-time.
I was there.
Not a great first half performance by any stretch of the imagination. However, you get the analogy, you get the analysis at half-time. We had more shots than the opposition, we had more corners than the opposition, we had more final third entries than the opposition, we had more penalty box than the opposition. They had 2 shots, both of them shots were on target, both of them shots ended up on target in our goal, and both of them were by a former player of Southend United, Frank Musa.
Yeah.
So all of them things were adding to a supporter's mentality that there was a problem at half-time. I was probably one of, I think you wanted to make changes, Cotter, didn't you? I was probably one of 6,500, 7,000 people who wanted to not make changes because the performance wasn't as bad as what people thought. However, the scoreline was reading 2-0. We then went out the second half and the rest history, you know.
Yeah.
I could have made changes, I could have made 3 changes, but I decided no, we committed to performance and the performance wasn't bad.
Just like we won 3-2. So
And we eventually won 3-2.
So
Well, the last part of core,
Yeah, go on.
responsibility, so you've got commit, you've got organise, you've got responsibility, and the last one is the most important one, enjoyment. You make sure whatever you do, because you're giving your life to whatever you're going to achieve, you're going to give your life to whatever you commit to, you make sure you enjoy it. That is a key word, enjoy.
Cool, that's great. One thing I want to ask you is, I have this phrase, you practice like it matters, so you can perform like it doesn't. So when you're free to perform.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might look at this and think, oh great, bring it together, but the weeks and the months and the phone calls you've got to do to get all these things here, so it looks like I'm standing there and all these speakers are standing there thinking, oh look at them, but you don't see what's behind the iceberg. It's the same in sport, isn't it? It's not what happens on Saturday at 3 o'clock, it's what happens during that week.
It's not just a week, it's, we call it preparation pre-season. We've got 6 weeks of preparation and pre-season where we physically, mentally put the players through torture. We overtrain, if truth be known. We overbuild them with regards to weight, strength and conditioning. Everything that we do, we're compensating for the actual performance. And then all of a sudden you wind it down and then get into the season. I was a player, the type of player I was fully committed to pre-season. When I got through pre-season, then I was committed to 46 games. A lot of players commit to the pre-season and they're ready for the first game. Yeah, you've got to be ready for the first game, but you've got a 46-game plan. And the 46-game plan is to achieve something. So I always did my pre-season, my 6 weeks work, to make sure that mentally and physically I was prepared for the grind, the rigours of the full season. And that's the kind of person I am. You don't see what's going on behind the scenes, but I've got 12 backroom staff now, analysis, strength and conditioning. I want a psychologist. If there's any budding psychologists in there, I'm desperate for one.
I used to play a bit.
I think it's a key, important, unused factor in the world of sport. I don't know what it's like in business, I've no idea. But I think
it's the same thing I was going to ask you this about, it all comes down to attitude is part of it. And I was going to ask you about, you've been in football a long time, when you're playing and you've been
40th season next year.
Assistant, manager, haven't you, and all the rest of it. What do you see in terms of the difference in terms of how maybe the young students and young adults in terms of what they think is entitled to and whether they work for it? Do you think with what's available in terms of technology, there needs a shift in terms of what they think they should be entitled to and what they should work for?
What you're entitled to is what you get, end of story. And I just think there's an awful lot. We've got 7 players this season who are under 21s. They represent our under 21s. And we had to sit them down last Friday. And I told 6 of them that they had an apprenticeship. They had another year as a professional footballer. And one of them I had to release. And that was a moment where this lad was really committed to his game. He had a great attitude, but he just didn't have the right ability. And we are hopefully going to go into the championship. And without the ability side of things, then you can't perform to the best of your ability. But I've got to say it, I'm disappointed in myself that I released him on ability and not attitude, because you do hire for attitude. Attitude is a massive, massive important tool in any walk of life. If you've got the right attitude, the ability normally takes care of itself. So we go through all of them procedures, giving people opportunities, but 1 or 2 of them have now, having been offered a contract, and this is my point, have come back to me and said, no, I want more than that. I deserve more than that. And at this moment in time, money should not matter in the slightest. Not in the slightest. What you're in the game for is to achieve greatness in terms of ability, how you produce that ability, winning things, winning trophies, being remembered for what you are and what you were, and the money always takes care of itself. In my work, money always takes care of itself, and there's plenty of money.
And it's the same in business, the same in work-wise. If you go in there with the right attitude, the things will come. You know, I've been in business like 10 years, and there's ups and downs all the time. How, I want to talk about resilience a little bit. Attitude to failure. What do you see as a professional that you might not see in amateurs in terms of the attitude to failure and the resilience that you have to build?
You've got to be robust in our game. You know, people talk about resilience. How do you measure resilience? It's the ability to come back and win the next game. And when you don't win the next game, you've got to then have the ability to come back and win the next game. We get tested week in, week out. We have 46 games in a season, and everybody at the end of that game has an opinion of how you played, has an opinion on your team, but they've also got a league table, they've got a reference point to how you're doing, how well you're doing. And at the start of this season, and there's a few Southend supporters in here, after 12 games, we were second bottom of this division. We had 12 points from 12 games. 1 point per game will get you relegated. 46 points won't be enough to survive. So we were below the achievement line. What we set out at the start of the season was to get 2 points per game. 2 points per game gets you 92 points, which will get you a title. For sure, it'll get you promoted. So we were going from that after 12 games to a mentality shift. And that mentality shift came about with, what would you say, Coppo? A change of system, a change of personnel, a change of...
Culture.
A change of...
Culture.
Yeah,
my good
coaching. It was a change of culture. We had we all know Adam Barrett in this room, and Adam Barrett was unfortunately coming to the end of his career, and that as a manager was a big decision for me to make, to actually say to a lad, your legs have gone, you're getting too old for the game, you're retiring, etc., etc. It's difficult to do that without being harsh, you know, the reality of truth. And we did that, and then we've shifted it totally in terms of a culture, and you mentioned the word, to an Anton Ferdinand managing the club, or, you know, captaining the club. But you're a manager when you're out there, you know, you are the manager when you're on the field of play, and he's captained the club in a different way, and we've now gone to a 2 points per game kind of club. Now all of a sudden we're sixth in the table, we're looking that way instead of that way. There's a lot more positivity about the place, there's a lot more belief that we can win the next game, and that's all we're focusing on.
Cool. 2 more questions. How do you handle pressure? There's not many jobs where your bosses are behind you and they can see what you're doing.
I surround myself with good people, simple as that.
Yeah,
I really do. I surround myself with good people, and that's not just good players, that's a good backroom staff. Coco's in the background there. He's been my assistant manager for 4 years now. He was the former manager's assistant manager, which is a difficult thing to carry that mantle on, because there's a massive change in culture, in the way you think, the way you act, the way you are as a person. And to be able to do that was brilliant for him. And then you go down the way, if you want to go to a director of football or a football coordinator, I've got Brian Horn, who's got more experience than me and Coco put together. So you're just building a culture, you're building that backroom staff to be able to control or be able to understand that when the going gets tough and the problems are on the field of play, we can handle that, no problem.
You mentioned culture a couple of times, and we talk about in business creating an ecosystem where people are comfortable engaging with your services.
Yeah.
It's no different in football.
No.
If you can have all the skill and ability, but the culture's not right, you're not going to perform. The environment's key.
The environment is so key, and we are unfortunately, our training ground is an old nightclub. Everyone will know the Boots and Laces is an old nightclub, but we've had to change that environment from coming into work into a nightclub to coming into work into a training ground and being ready for work, you know. So now the dance floor is now being covered and it's now a gym. The bar is now a serving hatch. You know, there's certain things that we've done that have made it into a place of work. And that sounds easy to say, but a place of work is important. People have to understand that when you cross the white line, we're going to work. When we come into Boots and Laces, we're ready for work. We're not ready to go dancing in a nightclub.
Because that's what
like you would have been.
Well, no, I know. Were you there?
Yeah.
Because they see on TV, they look at the Premier League, you know, people paying 30, 40 grand a week.
Yeah.
They go train a couple of hours, they rest at home, play FIFA, and that's it. But it's not like that at all.
It's not.
You can't, if you're gonna succeed.
If I can, you know, I heard the lad early on talking about dyslexia. You had dyslexia, and a lot of people equate Phil Brown there, Hull City, that's okay. But prior to that, I was assistant manager at Sam Allardyce.
That's the best part I could find.
I know. You call that the best?
That's what I found. Good.
Everyone knows me as, in the early part of my career, I think, as Sam Allardyce's assistant. And Sam's renowned. He's at Crystal Palace at the moment. He's never been relegated as a manager. He was former manager of England now. He had one game, unfortunately, but...
did you get a call about being a backroom staff?
I did, yes, I did.
Okay.
But it's one of them where Sam had dyslexia when he was 15, and he got kicked out of school at 15. And about 2 years ago, he was presented with an honorary degree by the college at Eton College.
Oh, wow.
And he had to get up on stage and make a speech. And he told them about his time when he was at Bloxwich in the Midlands near Walsall. And he got kicked out of school at 15, thinking his world was over. His career was over, he was finished. But he also had football to fall back on. He was a big lad. But he wasn't the best footballer in the world. But he maximised what he was. He maximised his personality. He maximised his resource as a 6'4" man. He maximised the fact that he could only kick with his right foot, so he decided, I'm going to learn to kick with my left foot, and became a left-hand side centre-back. He maximised his resources. And if there's ever an example for me to make sure that I maximise my resources, I just go back to my old mate, Sam Allardyce.
Right, because I talked about earlier about impact. How can you make the most impact? So Sam decided he can't play there, so whatever you can do to maximise that.
100%.
Fantastic, great. One final question. So what's is it a single goal this year?
4 questions ago he said 2 goals.
I know, but that's
Four questions.
the art of a great interview, isn't it?
Do I get paid for this?
Last question. So is the one single goal promotion, is that what it is this year?
No, it's a new stadium.
Right.
For sure, that's the only reason I came. That's the only reason I came.
There's a lot of talk about that. Can you tell us?
I square up to Ron, and he's my boss, and he gets it hard. You know, he really does. Because at the end of the day, 4 years ago, last week, I arrived at the football club to a new stadium. Hopefully, plans for a new stadium, all of them things. My job was to get it right on the pitch, and we got playoffs the first year, playoffs and promoted the second year. Had a little run in the first division. Had a look at it last year. We have to get promoted this year. We get into the championship, that forces my boss to build a stadium. That forces the area now to go like that.
Massive.
And come and support us, you know.
Massive. I got a big thing. I used to work in student recruitment where we recruited students from overseas.
Yeah.
And the biggest applications were directly related to the football teams doing well. Liverpool, Manchester, because that's on the news all the time.
Absolutely.
So when you get a championship,
goes hand in hand.
Southend.
We go to the championship and we get a new stadium. Our average crowd will be 15 to 20,000. It's now 7, and the maximum it can be is 12, 9, I think it is, Dean.
Yeah.
Isn't it, Dale?
Yeah, if you
12, 9.
Yes.
So we can get to 12,000. We get the championship, we'll fill that every week.
Definitely.
And then it becomes a little bit of a problem. We need a bigger stadium. We need a bigger house.
Yeah.
But we've got to get right on the field of play. End of story.
Right. Well, listen, and I've been at most home games this year. It's been fantastic. Listen, Phil Brown, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Phil Brown.